Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our official launch of the new and improved Embodied Carbon Pathfinder. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate having you all here. I am Jennifer O'Connor. I'm with the Athena Sustainable Materials Institute. We're a long-standing nonprofit group working in life cycle assessment in the construction sector, and we facilitated this project, but we did not do the heavy lift. That honor belongs to the collaborators on this project, all of whom I think will be with us today to help take your questions at the end of today's event. So first of all, doing most of the work generating the data that you will see in this tool was a team from Morrison Hershfield, now Stantec, and from that group, we have Ivan Lee, Callum Galley, and Mark Lusick. On the software side, on the wrangling of all this data and getting it into this unique visualization platform, we had Open Technologies. We have Ryan McQuaig with that, and then assisting us with some really invaluable advice and guidance, particularly in making connections in the Greater Toronto area. We have Ryan Zizzo. So that's the team. What I'm going to do today, what we'll do today with this webinar is I'm going to run through a few slides. I want to give you an introduction to the tool to explain what it's all about, and that will make it easier for you then to see the demo. I'm going to hand it over to Mark Lusick when I'm done with a few slides, and Mark's going to walk you through a demo. And then at the end of all that, we will open the floor for your questions and discussion. If any of you had colleagues who wanted to attend today but couldn't make it, we are recording, and I will make that recording available and let you all know where to find them. Okay, also bear with me. I hopefully we won't have any glitches. This is my first time running a webinar in Teams, so hopefully it's going to work. Also, because we are a fairly large group, please use the chat to communicate with us. When I'm done with my slides and I hand it over to Mark, I will monitor the chat and then facilitate the questions either during the demo or afterwards when we open the floor. Okay, so bear with me a second while I share my screen with you and just go and get my slides. Okay, can someone just on the team just tell me if I'm properly sharing slides?
Yep, we can see it, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that because I never really know. Okay, so once again, thanks for being here for our official launch of the newly updated Embodied Carbon Pathfinder. So as I said, I'm going to show you a few slides. I just want to explain the tool a little bit before you get the live demo. First, just want to identify the development team and the funders. Do a big shout out to everyone who worked on this. As I said, at the Athena Institute, we mostly just facilitated this. The heavy lift was Morrison Hershfield, now Stantec. We had Open Technologies on the software side and Mantle Developments in a really key advice and guidance role. On the funding side, this update, we brought in a whole new region, the Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. Funding that expansion, which also allowed us to add some more building types, was the Atmospheric Fund and the Peter Gilligan Foundation. So I want to really thank them for that support. The original version of the Pathfinder, which launched a couple years ago and just had Vancouver as a region and 3 different multi-family residential building types, that was funded by BC Forestry Innovation Investment and supported by the City of Vancouver and the province of BC. Okay, so the Embodied Carbon Pathfinder will serve a few purposes. It is a free web app, and its intention is to allow you to very quickly estimate cradle to grave indirect carbon impacts, also called embodied carbon, to be able to very quickly do that in early design. The results it's showing are for 8 different archetype buildings. I think of this as an introductory LCA-based educational tool, kind of a gateway tool to LCA. And I say that thinking of the folks who don't know where to start when they are facing a requirement to assess embodied carbon. And that was a finding, actually, it was a key finding from a study done a year or two ago by Mantle, looking at what are the hurdles to embodied carbon. And one of the key findings they saw was that people don't know where to start. So this is a tool that could potentially help those folks start to climb that ladder in embodied carbon. It can be used for getting some guidance in very early design, pre-design. It can be just a general education and awareness tool, as I said, maybe an LCA gateway tool. And it can be useful perhaps to take a temperature check if your project is subject to some sort of embodied carbon policy compliance. Okay, how you use the tool? Well, you're going to start by picking a region. So either the greater Vancouver area or the greater Toronto area. The tool can be used in other regions. You would just want to bear in mind that as you get outside of these regions, the uncertainty of results would increase. And more regions will be added as funding allows. Once you've set your region, then now you're going to pick a building type. There are 8 available archetypes. These are very, very generic building models, very simple. The results are specific to these archetypes, so the applicability of results to your particular building will, of course, vary, and more building types will be added as funding allows. Okay, so you've answered those 2 questions. You've picked a region, you've picked an archetype, and that's just so that the software knows what data set to load up. And then when you've done that, you will land on the visualization interface, and then you can start to play around with it. So I know that at first glance, I've just given you a screen grab here. At first glance, it probably looks complicated, but it is actually easy to use once you get the hang of it, and you're going to see all that shortly in our demo. So once you're there, you can begin to make selections for various design variables, and then see what that does to your GWP, your global warming potential or embodied carbon result, or you could set a target for that embodied carbon result and then see what design variables are available to you to reach that target. Once you're on the screen, you can flip to the other geographic region if you want. You can flip between building types. All right, so what is going on in the background to allow this tool to work? Well, what's going on is a lot of pre-calculated data. It is using results from some parametric life cycle assessment, or LCA, of those 8 different building types and all reasonable combinations of the design variables, which led to millions of data points, millions of results that are sitting in the background um, to allow you to play instantly with these results. The software tool that was used to do all of those parametric runs was the Athena Impact Estimator for buildings. What came out of this was a huge table of results. It's visible to the user at all times. And then the Pathfinder visualization technique is drawing from that table to dynamically display results per the user request. I've listed on the slide all of those combinations, the different building types, regions, all sorts of different variables in structural system and cladding and insulation types and so forth. So you can see how that adds up quickly if you're doing parametric analysis to a lot of runs. I just want to say a word about the archetypes. So for each of those 8 buildings, a generic design was determined. So an archetype design was developed based on advice from industry, common practice, the knowledge of the development team here. And then in consultation with industry experts, a set of reasonable design variables was developed for each archetype. For example, a list of different options for insulation, what type of structural system should be made available, and so forth. Okay. It's probably my last slide. Okay, so I just want to wrap up this intro, just a little more commentary on why use this tool. So what are the use cases for it? And I'm sure during Mark's demo, he's going to elaborate on that more, and you'll be able to imagine how and when it might be used. But I think of 4 most likely scenarios when you would use it. So first of all, I think of this primarily as an educational tool. It's going to help introduce users to life cycle assessment, or LCA. It's going to help them gain a high level understanding of the embodied carbon implications associated with various combinations of design decisions, the results on those archetype buildings. I think also it's really potentially useful for guidance in early design. So very, very early, or even pre-design, just to get some early direction on design choices. So way before you're ready to do a custom LCA, just to get those first potential decisions sort of on the table. Third, it could be an early check on policy. So where a project is subject to an embodied carbon cap, for example, it could help maybe narrow some of the choices, or maybe just let you know if the direction you think you're going to go in, if it's likely to come in under those caps. It can be helpful for that. Again, when it is too early for you to do the actual building LCA on your own project. And then finally, some policy may actually allow this tool to be used to show compliance. And I think a couple of cases for the city of Vancouver that that this tool is allowed for that. So just want to leave this just with a final emphasis that this is for very early design. These results are for the generic archetype buildings and not any particular building. To do that, you really need to do a custom LCA on your own project. Okay, that is it for my demo. Stop sharing. Sorry, that's it for my intro. Okay. Mark, are you ready to take it over?
Yes, I am. That is not a flattering camera.
You don't have to put your camera on. Are you
Yeah.
able to share? Do I need to?
I think you need to enable me first.
Okay, 1 second while I remember how to do that. Just 1 second. I just have to find you in the list. Make presenter, Mark Lusick.
There we go. Okay,
Okay,
so I'm just going to share my entire screen, I think. Select a tab to share. Entire screen. Share. Why is it not? Okay, there. Share. Okay, I think you guys can see my screen. So the first
can't see
question, I think. Oh,
Mark.
you can't see it yet?
We can't see yours.
Can't see your screen yet.
Okay. Let's see what's going on. It says I have got it. I don't know what that is. It says it's sharing. Odd. I'll stop sharing and share again.
Sure.
There. It says it's sharing.
Not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me try a different way here.
Sure.
Stop sharing. I'll share a tab. Da, da, da.
While Mark is still poking around, just a reminder to folks to use the chat if you have questions. And I do see one. I'll just take this while you're working on this, Mark. How is policy compliance monitored using the tool in Vancouver? You'll have to consult the City of Vancouver documentation requirements. But I believe if you are going for the, if you're doing the embodied carbon in the rezoning policy, you are allowed. Sorry, if anyone from City of Vancouver is on the call, if you wanted to put something in the chat, that would probably be helpful. But I think to answer that question, I have to say you need to check the documentation requirements with the city.
Hi, Jennifer. I'll just write the response in the chat if that's okay.
Thank you very much. I was hoping you were here, Zara.
I'm not
Okay,
sure
Mark.
what to do because it's it says it's sharing.
Well, that's very strange. Okay, plan B could be I could bring up the tool and you could tell me what to do.
Ooh. We could try that. I'm wondering whether just 1 second.
Yeah, take another moment. It's worth.
Yeah, it's maybe I'll
you might want to just leave the meeting perhaps and then join again.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, I'll try that.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Anyone want to say hello while we're waiting for Mark to come back? Chat amongst ourselves. We do still have plenty of time, so I'm not too worried. I thank you for your patience.
Yeah. Val here. While we're waiting, Jennifer, I missed the intro, so you might have explained it again already. But is the tool already completed and is it available online?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Buildingpathfinder.com.
Okay.
Sorry, it was in my slide. I have to check that for you. www.buildingpathfinder.com. It is up and live. Thank you for.
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Colleen, for posting that. And nice to see you, Val.
Thank you.
Is it going to crash if we all go there at the same time?
That's a good question for our technology partner, Ryan.
I am watching all the graphs right now, and so far we're good. But I did just see it jump up 30 seconds ago.
Yeah, I'm here now.
Okay, I'm gonna make you a presenter.
Yeah.
And let's see, hopefully it'll work this time.
Share screen.
Yay!
Yay, I changed to the app. I was on an online version. Okay, sorry about that, folks. So let's get started here. I'm assuming everyone can see it. I think the first question is that you should have is how do you find this tool? I think the easiest thing to do is Google it. Building Pathfinder, and the first hit will be the Pathfinder. So when you come to the Pathfinder, you come to this entry screen. Before we go further, I'll just talk about the top here. There's tutorials available that will be similar to what you're going to be seeing now. There's an About tab that will go over about the Building Pathfinder, of course. There's an FAQ, which I won't get into, but there's a methodology which I wanted to show you. This is a long document, so it's I'm not going through it all by any stretch, but this goes through in more detail what the archetypes look like. So you can see what the variables of all these archetypes look like. It'll towards the end, it talks about the system boundaries and the model scope, and really describes in great detail a lot of the I don't know, the background for this tool. So I think it can be really helpful. It probably is worthwhile spending, the first time you use it, go through this document and so that you can understand some things. But due to time limitations, we won't. And of course, there's a help file and things like that. So that's all I'm going to say about that. To start the Pathfinder, we see there are these 3 tabs down here. First, the first thing you have to do, and Jennifer talked about this quickly, was choose which one you want, the operating energy or embodied carbon. When you click that, these other things pop up. So now which region do you want? So let's just pick one. And then finally a building archetype, which, as I said in that discussion, will describe the archetypes, but you can see the archetypes that are available now. So let's just pick one. Now you'll see that changes, it gets bold, so we can actually launch it. I should say this is live right now. It was live as of, or we made final changes, I think, yesterday. So hopefully we won't have any glitches. I imagine there will be some glitches over time, but we'll fix those as we go along. Okay, so here's the tool. I'm going to go into a little bit of detail to rehash a little bit about what Jennifer said so that you can understand what this tool is. So in this case, we have a mid-rise office building. And at the same time, I'm going to describe a little bit of the functionality of this tool. So let me take a step back. There are 3 major parts to the screen. There's kind of the control panel up at the top where we can do certain things to the data that's down below. We can change them. So I can remember we selected that in the earlier phase. We can do it live from this page too and change the different types and things like that. Then there's the visual interface that shows you all of the impacts of the different combinations of variables. That's probably the most important thing that you want to pay attention to. Down here is all of the data. So there's a lot of data. I'm not going to, there can be millions of rows in there, but each one of these lines that's in here is represented in a line down here. So if let's just randomly select a few things so that we can get an idea of how this tool was developed. So I'm limiting things right now. I'm putting boxes to limit the inputs for the different archetype. So
Mark, perhaps just explain that you're clicking and dragging to do that.
Good point. So I'm clicking and dragging these little boxes. So right now I've got one line. I've got a single line. Actually, there's might be 2, but doesn't matter. We've got one line, and what this is for these sets of variables. So we've got a mid-rise office building in Toronto. We've got a glulam beam and column system with curtain wall, cross-laminated timber floors. I just did these all at random. And you can see this one set of variables results in one set of outputs. So these outputs are all embodied carbon, but they are, well, I'll describe this. I might as well describe it right now. So we've got global warming potential with no biogenic carbon in it. So if you hover over that, you can see what the result is. So this is this is what is done in the CAGBC Zero Carbon program. So this is the cradle to grave results that do not include the carbon stored in organic materials, such as wood. We have global warming potential with biogenic carbon. So in this case, it's the same as the previous one, but now we're getting credited for wood that's encapsulated in the building. So in this case, yeah, so it's the cradle grave results. in the carbon stored in organic materials. So, but included, and concrete as well. And then global warming potential A1 to A5. So it's only part of the life cycle. So this is cradle to gate, I think. Cradle to gate, is that right, Jennifer?
Cradle to handover.
Cradle to handover, yeah.
End of construction.
And so the reason some of these are there is this is from the Toronto Green Standard. This one is for the CAGBC Net Zero program. And this is a third option, which is the, the as per the national guidelines, I guess. So if we change something in here, so I can change this, we've got one set of data. So the results here would be the results of putting all of the archetypes with all of these variables through the Athena impact estimator. If I change one, and let's just, let's go there. Now I have two. If you have more than that, because I didn't limit some of these. Okay, so now I have 2 points. So in this case, we have 2 runs. So we have all the same variables except for the wall type. Now I have a concrete block wall and a cross-laminated timber wall, and you can see that the results change a little bit. Now there's 2 sets of results. If I change, let's say floor, we are in CLT already. So, oops. Why is that? I got the wrong side of it. Okay, we'll do this way instead. So now we've got, I don't know how many variables there are. I guess we could calculate it. We've got 2 times 1, 2, 3. So we've got 6. Now we got every possible combination of these variables is represented in these outputs over here. I don't know, I'm rambling a bit, aren't I? Sorry about that. So this is the way the tool is that if I reset all, you will see that every possible iteration, every possible combination of all these variables is represented in this set of outputs. So there are, potentially millions. It changes by archetype, but there's, at least hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of data points here. So looking at this, what this graph tells me is that this combination for this archetype in this region, this combination of all of these variables results in a range. I'll just use A1 to A5. Well, you know what, we'll use, okay, we'll use A1 to A5. It's easy. As a range of about 130 to about 470 kilograms per square meter of embodied carbon. So you can see that as we hone down in this, or there's a lot of availability for people to choose combinations of these systems that result in dramatically lower impacts. So the way to use this tool, there are different ways to use it. So the first way you could use it is you could say, I'm only interested in the bottom, the best performers. So I'm going to take the very bottom. And what will happen here is you see a couple of things get kicked out. So now in this line, concrete is no longer available as a beam and column assembly. But precast insulated panels are still available on walls. Concrete isn't available as a floor. We also have parking levels. We can't have parking levels if we want to maintain that. Different things you can do at this level. Well, I don't know. So, that, where is, I wanted to show up. I can't do keep selection. That doesn't matter. Okay, so that will show us that it kicks us out of certain things. So I'm going to reset all, or gives us some guidance on where how to get there, but there's still a lot of flexibility, a lot of availability. We could still use a steel column and beam. So if I limit steel, other things will be affected too. Let's say I say that I want a concrete block wall now. As we go along, things get kicked out. So now I can't have interior insulation, and I must have aluminum punched windows and not aluminum curtain wall. So you can sort of play back and forth into depending on how you want the results. So I'm going to reset all now. Another way to use this tool would be, you might have some of these variables that you already know. So let's say, for example, that I know I have a concrete column and beam system with my mid-rise office building. Oops, can't grab it. So when I selected that, you can see that it kicked me up. The results kicked me up into the top part, the worst performing. And that's just the way it is for this particular thing. Let's say there were other things that you knew. If we have concrete columns and beams, we probably have concrete floors. Let's say, for example, we have curtain wall. So that might be the range. Maybe you're flexible on these other things. So now you can see a range that we have between 300 and 450 with the items that you are flexible with. Now it also has kicked us out of certain things. So I must use curtain wall as a wall in order to achieve those results. I must have glass cladding and things like that. But there is still flexibility in that.
Mark,
yeah,
it's probably worth mentioning that sometimes it got kicked out because that combination wasn't available in the data.
Yes, right? True.
Okay.
Yeah, we have limited some data for things that obviously didn't make sense, such as, I don't know, a wood, concrete floor on steel, on wood stud walls, load-bearing walls, things like that aren't available. But it is important to note that it is not a design tool, not a structural design tool. So now you can see there is still a range, and we can start playing around with things. Up here, a useful thing is the color scheme and where the color scheme is. What's it's done by. So right now it's under global warming potential with no biogenic carbon. So here, and you can see that green is low and red is high. So as you look through the variables that are here, you can start to play around with things where, like for example, when I look at this, under SCMs, I can see red tends to be 0 and green tends to be 40. So this looks to me like it makes a big difference. We could test that. We could go like that and say, oh boy, yeah, that does seem like it makes a big difference. 20, 30, 40. So it, that does make a difference. Whereas when you look, let's say here, under insulation, those seem to be the same colors more or less. So those ones don't make a big difference. Again, we could test it. Let's take a look and see the difference. It doesn't significantly change anything. The output over here, as we're changing from the two different types of insulation. So these are ways you can use this tool. Let's see, I wanted to do the keep selection, but I can't do that right now. Tools up here. So we can reset brushes, reset all. For reset brushes, it takes those little, this is a brush. So when I reset brushes, it resets it. I don't have the keep selection. So the reset all, when the keep selection is working, I'm not sure why it's not working right now. But what keep selection does is it will keep the data, only the data that's there. So if I did this, it would get rid of these two options and put the full range out here. So reset all will reset back to that that initial response.
Mark,
Yeah.
I'd like to say, I want to save about 20 minutes for questions, so we just have about 4 minutes left.
Okay.
Can you, but can you flip to Vancouver? Because a question came in the chat about how gross floor area is calculated, and so that's a good chance to explain the the GWP that's specific to Vancouver and the with and without parkade situation.
Okay. So this one, do we have Vancouver parking levels, street and two? You want it this one, Jennifer?
Yeah,
The
it's just
mid-rise?
that, okay, actually, let me help you out here. The question
Okay.
came up, how are we calculating gross floor area? Because that the functional unit here is meters squared of gross floor area. And it includes everything except for that last GWP column, GWP van, we're calling it, where for Vancouver, because this is specific to Vancouver's embodied carbon policy, the gross floor area does not include the parkade, but the GWP does.
Yes. So do you want to expand on that anymore, or is that it,
No, that's it.
Jennifer? Okay. So I know I've rambled a bit. I think the best way to probably use this is to best way to figure out this tool is to use it. If you have that entry level understanding as to what the outputs are and how to play around with the inputs, then you can come up with ideas and concepts on how to reduce your embodied carbon in your building. So maybe I'll just leave it at that, Jennifer. I don't know. I feel like I was a little bit disjointed, but
No, you you were fine, Mark. I thought it was excellent. But what we could do is have you keep your screen up just in case anyone would
okay.
like you to do something in particular. So I do want to open the floor for questions, comments. You can either put something in the chat or raise your hand if you want to actually ask your question live. If you want Mark to do a particular demo, for example. So I'm watching the chat and I'm watching for anyone wanting to raise a hand. Okay, so is the SCM content for the concrete mixes based on weighted average or based on volume? I'm going to have to turn to one of the team members, maybe Ivan.
Yeah, I feel like I should know this,
Okay.
but and I don't off the top of my head. It's the standard SCM content that Athena represents in their models. Athena gets it from, the concrete. Well, you could describe where you get it from, Jennifer, but the various concrete associations or cement associations. So I think it's percent of. I think it's by mass. That's my recollection.
I unfortunately can't answer that question myself.
Maybe we should say we'll get back to you on that. I
Okay,
know
we
it is
will.
the standard in the industry, whatever that
Mhm.
is.
Okay, I got questions in two places. Can you please explain why there is no option for the foundation?
I think that's probably a good question. The foundation was fixed, so the foundation is present in the model, but because the foundation is almost always concrete, we don't leave it as an option. So, and an important note on that is that the SCM content does include SCMs for the foundations.
Okay. Is the concrete beam column system based on precast or cast in place?
Cast in place.
Cast in place. Okay, and I do have another question from Val from the precast folks. Under the floor column, it refers to hollow core concrete and concrete, although both are concrete floor systems. Is concrete in this case referring to cast in place solid concrete floors? Similarly, under cladding column, there is Val, do you want to, this is a long, do you want to unmute yourself and just ask your question?
Yeah, sure. I was just trying to understand on those columns that you mentioned, if you can. Not sure who's sharing the screen.
That's Mark. I just put
Oh,
back
okay.
to
Okay.
mid-rise office. So
Yeah, no, I was just kind of quickly noticed on the floor system there's hollow core concrete and there's just concrete. I guess the comment there was like both are concrete floor systems. Is in this case concrete referred to as cast in place? Or
the
what?
concrete would be cast in place.
All right, and then and then the cladding, the column next to it, precast insulated panel, and then precast concrete. Is precast concrete like the architectural single width cladding?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be sitting on the outside of the building as opposed to the whole panel.
I see.
Which,
yes. Okay.
and perhaps up's not there. If we went to leave that window there, I'm going to go to Building Pathfinder again. And where you could find these answers is under here, under the methodology. So we could go to the high rise, whereas there's mid-rise commercial. It describes in a little more detail some of the systems that are there. And I don't know if we just go into more detail than that. I don't think so. So it does go into a little more detail exactly what those are. Any other questions?
Yeah, it's quite a few. First, I'll just point Matt Dalkey. Thank you, Matt, for clarifying the question from Anu. Is there no, okay, I'll answer that myself. Hang on one second, there were a few. Sorry, I had them in two places because this interface has two questions. There was a steel question. Okay, bear with me a second. Is there any option to export the data? Well, I suppose you could download that. I don't think it's an easy one, Ryan M. Anyway, they could download that.
There's not as of this moment an easy way, but that is a good feature suggestion.
Yeah, although I'd wonder what you want to do with it.
And keep in mind, there are sometimes over millions of rows of data. So it wouldn't be very useful to download all the data now. Now, if you limited it to a few of the variables and you only had 50 lines of data, that might be more useful.
Yeah, when it's fully expanded out to CSV, I think the biggest one is the mid-rise MERB.
Okay.
That is a 2.36 gigabyte data file when it's in that format. So I think you would want to probably filter
Shrink
it down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does only glulam and CLT provide biocarbon storage? No, there would be some light wood frame on the, we have a single family home in here. I imagine the stacked townhouse would have some, 2x4s. So
And what about, does concrete?
no.
It doesn't, because you
No,
can't store
no.
carbon in it.
The only other place you might have it is if, I don't remember if there's a cellulose insulation option.
Yeah, there is cellulose insulation options for both a single family home and a townhouse.
Okay. Where have you generated the A4 and A5 data from? That information is inherent to the Athena impact estimator for buildings. So if you wanted to dig deep into the methodology of these LCA results, you'd go back to the Athena Institute and look at the transparency document on that. Are the EPDs used by the tool listed somewhere on the website? Again, the data behind this tool is inherent in the Athena Impact Estimator, and all of the background on that data would be found in the Athena literature. Okay. Compared to the previous version, what are the highlights of this new version? Mark,
I
do you
think
want to explain?
sure, I'll take it. First of all, we have Toronto because the previous version didn't have any Toronto. And we also have more archetypes, which we included, going from memory here: strip mall, townhouse, a single family house, and an elementary school, which we put to both regions. If you go back to the original regions and the original archetypes, they'll be almost exactly the same, except the outputs will be a little different. We added this GWP for Vancouver and the biogenic, I think, as well. Did I miss anything?
I think you got it all. I'm sorry, I'm just scanning for some more questions. I have answered a few in the chat. Answered directly. When working on the modeling of a particular building archetype, is there a way to save the particular session?
I think the answer to that is no.
I think it's no. I think maybe a screen grab.
Yeah, you can screen grab. You can actually, there is, I don't know why this functionality is not there. I think it's on my side. But you can keep selection and exclude, and you can pin. So if the pinning is a tool that some people like, that you can, if you've got one point that you said, this is my starting point, and you could pin that and it'll come up as a bold line. So that sort of is saving, but not really. It doesn't save the whole session, but there's some memory there, I guess.
I do just want to emphasize that these are very, very generic, very simple archetypes. Run through using a lot of the assumptions that are built into the impact estimator. So it's just for that early temperature check, and perhaps as an introduction to life cycle assessment. But that so some of you are going to have questions that are going to go into far more detail. You're going to go into more what ifs, things that this tool can't do because it's not designed to do that. So when you do want to get deeper into that, you want to do proper analysis. Then you really need to go into a tool like the impact estimator or one click or tally, and do the actual LCA on your own building.
Now, the one thing that I'd emphasize, though, is that, LCA, when you're looking at the embodied impacts, there's this catch-22 in that in order to do an embodied impact study using these more detailed tools, you kind of have to have a detailed design. But by the time you have that detailed design, the team is not flexible to make decisions on those systems. So they've already locked into their floor slabs and wall slabs and things like that by the time you come to tell them that they made a bad decision. Whereas I think this tool can help design teams make those decisions early, before you can see how quickly you can use this, so that someone can in minutes come and say, hey, it makes a big difference if we change the floor slab assembly, or maybe it doesn't. They can help the decision makers make important decisions very, very early. But like Jennifer said, it's broad brushstrokes. So you can't necessarily rely on them fully, but they can give you some guidance and point you in the right direction.
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, I guess just on the SCM again, and maybe I can find it further down, but is it applied to all concrete elements evenly? verticals versus slabs and all that kind of stuff, or because obviously you can load up on the vertical elements, not so much on the slabs, right? It depends on
Yeah.
the time of year and everything like that that you're casting. So I guess it's just applied evenly, like 40%, for example, across the board.
And the answer to that is yes. And I think it might emphasize what Jennifer was saying is it's not a detailed tool. So the way I'd suggest you look at SCMs are, do SCMs make a difference? You can figure out that using this tool and how much of a difference. And then from there, you could go and say, hey, that's below grade. It does make a big difference. So let's go to 40% below grade concrete and 20% in the slabs, but try to maximize it for each of the elements. That would come later in design.
Last call for questions or discussion or comment. Okay. That's great. Well, thanks everyone for attending. Thank you for your questions in the chat. Really appreciate that. And also any of us on the team are happy to hear from you. If you something occurs to you want to throw in front of us later, please feel free to get in touch. Okay, I'm going to close it off. Thanks, everyone.
Goodbye, folks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.